Adam Lanza compiled extensive research on other mass shootings, graphic details about the killers, their weapons, and victims. Sources say Lanza tracked the death tolls of other attacks and viewed them in terms of scores. Investigators believe Lanza was trying to achieve a higher score than other mass killers when he attacked the nearby school. Investigators suspect Lanza viewed the school as an easy target filled with people. As we first reported last month, Lanza was particularly obsessed with Anders Breivik, a Norwegian man who killed 77 people in July 2011. But Lanza's research went beyond Breivik. Inside the home Lanza shared with his mother, investigators found information about numerous high-profile crimes. One law enforcement official who was briefed on the case said he's never heard of another killer who did more planning and organizing. Lanza also spent countless hours inside his house in a basement gaming room with the windows blacked out. There, investigators found a large collection of violent shooting games. Now, investigators believe Lanza's fascination with those video games and other notorious killers led him to act out his deadly fantasy. The extensive research makes it clear, Bob, this was not an act of sudden rage, but rather a premeditated massacre.
The Bill of Rights protects every American's God-given right to keep and bear arms. Now that right is being seriously undermined as legally registered rifles are being confiscated in some parts of our country. If we're not careful, we may find ourselves with no right to own guns, and that's where Gun Owners of America comes in. Gun Owners of America is in Washington every day fighting for you to keep that right. Congressman Ron Paul has called GOA the only no-compromise gun lobby in Washington. You need to be part of this great grassroots group of activists who are keeping the heat on their members of Congress. Find out right now how you can join. Call 888-886-GUNS and get started receiving their fact-filled newsletters and action alerts. Call 888-886-GUNS or go to their webpage at gunowners.org and help make your voice heard in Washington. Make that call right now and call Gun Owners of America at 888-886-GUNS. Remember, it's not just about gun control, it's about control.
This is the Gun Owners News Hour, with the latest news about threats to your liberty and your right to keep and bear arms. Our host is Larry Pratt, Executive Director of Gun Owners of America. Our guests include elected and other public officials, journalists, citizen activists, and others who are fighting for the Bill of Rights, especially the Second Amendment. The Gun Owners News Hour covers a broad range of constitutional issues. Remember, the issue is not just about gun control. It's about control.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the News Hour. You might have suspected that it was inevitable. This show will be about Sandy Hook. And talk to us about it is Doug Giles, who has put together a book on the Sandy Hook Massacre. And it's rather aptly subtitled, When Seconds Count, the Police Are Minutes Away. In the case of Sandy Hook, I believe it was 20 minutes. Certainly enough time for a dirtbag to murder 26 people. The moral of the story is, when are we going to learn that defenseless schools are murder magnets? Doug, I'm just so glad that you put together this book. Some of your authors really hit the mark with their comments, and I don't know. Do you see any progress? Are we going to get rid of, from your point of view, from your vantage, are we making any progress getting rid of the gun-free school zones?
I hope so, and Larry, thanks for having me on your show, because this is a topic that, as far as I'm concerned, and you can tell in the news, it's a front burner issue, and you can see how the leftists are apoplectic, grabbing for our arms that we used to have this right to keep and bear. And the thing that I like about it is when you see, as you obviously felt the blunt end of the poll cue with Pierce Morgan, when you see Biden, when you see, fabricated ski pictures of Obama, when you see all of them pressing hard for our Second Amendment rights, the thing that cheers me up, the thing that makes me feel like, okay, maybe America is waking up, is the overwhelming stiff arm that the American collective is giving to these leftist zealots who do not want us to have guns. I don't care how much crap they say about hunting and skeet shoots. Listen, leftists, and you know this, Larry, leftists cannot accomplish their wet dream of totalitarianism when civilians have firepower.
It really is driving them crazy, and clearly they thought their moment had arrived after the horrendous massacre at Sandy Hook. Man, all those dead little children, this is going to drive our agenda through. If nothing else had worked in the past, this is the time. Well, maybe it really wasn't. Folks, we're going to be back and talk some more with Doug Giles. You can find out about the work he's doing at clashdaily.com, where he and other irreverent culture warriors write on a regular basis. We're going to be back and talk some more about the Sandy Hook Massacre. Well, Pastor Doug Giles, you're a busy guy. Anybody that's a pastor has a full-time job, and how you manage to do all your writing on your website at clashdaily.com and then put together this book on the Sandy Hook Massacre. I don't know how you do it, but my hat's off to you, because you've made a real contribution with this book.
Yeah, I'll rest when I die, I guess.
For sure. For sure. At least the body will.
Yeah, exactly. Turn to worm dirt. What's interesting about this this whole assault weapons ban, and we got to limit the number of rounds and magazines to under 10 in most states. Cuomo's got it 7 or less, and the People's Republic of New York.
Right.
Larry, when it was enacted 10 years or in 1994 via Feinstein and Clinton through 2004, it didn't do diddly squat. I mean, school shootings spiked during that decade. Also, workplace violence. So everybody's like, man, we got to do something. We've got to get these high-capacity magazines and these scary-looking black arms, out of law-abiding citizens' hands. And again, folks, they tried it. It was found wanting, and Columbine happened during that time period. I think 30-plus school shootings occurred during the assault, quote-unquote, weapons ban.
Yeah, how's that working out for us, right? I thought there was an appropriate statement in the book referring to Sandy Hook as the avoidable massacre at Sandy Hook. I didn't know whether to cry or to explode in rage, because once again, our politicians, by doing nothing, have left laws on the book that make school zones murder magnets, and here we went again. It's like once a year just about since we've been afflicted with quote-unquote gun-free zones, we've had a gun-free zone murder party in these mostly schools, sometimes a place like a mall where they got as stupid as the administrators of schools. It's so avoidable, and yet we don't learn. I think there's... As I was reading your book, as I've thought about this on other occasions, there's a passage in Scripture that says that those who hate God love death. They must love death. They want so much of it. They keep ensuring that the conditions for mass murder will be left intact.
You know, it's interesting in Obama's State of the Union and several pressers that Obama and Biden did, is that they're like, we got to protect the children, and Obama's like, we can't have security guards in the school. Biden's he scoffed at the idea. Well, on January 31st of 2012, the Newtown School Board said, you know what? We need armed guards in school because, you know what? The presence of the gun, pull down the gun-free zone sign, the presence of an armed guard, or the fact that there might be some teacher in there, some school marm in there, pack, stack, ready to whack, or an administrator, or Slappy White, the janitor, the lunchroom lady with the lazy eye. She might be carrying an LCP 380, and I guarantee that any kind of Adam Lanza satanic weed, if he rocks up to that place and all of a sudden the janitor puts a little 90-grain 380 pill, by his head, that little puke is going to get back in his Prius, and he's going to go home and whine about it on Facebook. Armed presence is a huge deterrent. And you see where there's been an armed civilian in mass shooting situations, it's been stopped and there's been an average of 2 people die. But where there's been absence of any kind of weaponized civilian or administrator or teacher or security person, there's an average of 14-plus people that are killed. This is an easy equation. You'd think, Larry, like you said, as much as they yarble on about loving the children, they'd at least put a gun around them because they do Bon Jovi, they do Alec Baldwin, they do our Congress people and diamond and gold bars. as much as they prattle on about, loving children and they be in the future, you'd think they'd guard them, but they don't.
We seem to have a guard around everything but our children, and maybe that reflects our priorities. Maybe we do abort many of them, so maybe that we don't have that much regard for the ones that don't get aborted. They're just sort of accidents themselves, waiting for a later abortion when they go to school.
They ought to put a sign by. Well, anyway, I'm gonna get crass, and I'm gonna get kicked off the radio, Larry. So I'll keep it clean.
Well, we're going to be back and talk to this very edgy pastor, Doug Giles, who is in South Florida, at least when he's preaching, and he's put out a book called Sandy Hook Massacre. When seconds count, the police are minutes away. Talking today about what happened at Sandy Hook. One thing happened is that once again we saw that gun-free zones not only are not helpful, they are downright dangerous, and for those stupid enough to obey such a law, it can be your last day on this earth, at least at above room temperature. I just wonder if some of the teachers, as you speculate in the book, or one of your contributors, wish that one of those teachers might have had a bootleg pistol somewhere in their boot or knapsack or whatever.
Yeah.
And yet you point out that Bob Costas, in his great wisdom, opined that an armed audience member in Aurora at the theater shooting only would have made things worse.
Yeah. I wonder if he thinks that we just kind of hold our hand up in the air and just start spraying bullets, willy-nilly. When we target practice or when we would draw down on a perpetrator. I don't know about you, Larry, but I'm 50 years old. I've been shooting for 40 years. I won't say that I'm the greatest shot in the world, but man, can I double tap the center mass of a target with great regularity. And I think they live in a cartoon world. I think they don't know weapons. They fundamentally don't understand most shooters, and I would say 90% of the shooters that I know are extremely conscientious about what's beyond the target, about controlling their fire. Even the ladies that we've introduced to this incredible sport of ours, they're great shots as well, and they're really conscientious about what's downrange beyond the target. And guys like Costas or Pierce Morgan or other drips from the left, they're not around guns. They don't understand it. Guarantee that if there would have been a teacher in that classroom or somebody in the Aurora Theater or somebody on Virginia Tech campus, that when these demonic dillweeds rocked up and they had a gun, that it would have ended it. It would have not gone on to 30-plus students at Virginia Tech. It wouldn't have gone on to 20-plus kids. It would have been over with. Sure, one or two persons might have died, but I guarantee that once a 125-grain 38 caliber bullet exiting the barrel at 980 feet per second, piercing one of the lungs or the heart of an Adam Lanza Claude after he broke the glass at Sandy Hook, it would have ended it, and there would have been a lot of kids happy and clapping, a lot of parents thankful that a teacher had the foresight to anticipate this happening in a quaint little town like Newtown.
Well, and your alternative actually did happen in Clackamas in a mall, when 3 days before the dirtbag in Newtown went off, another dirtbag was trying to become a Champagne mass murderer, went into the mall, which incidentally was marked no guns, so that worked real well.
Maybe they can't read.
Well, if they're government school graduates, there's always that risk. But killed a couple of people, wounded another. But then another guy, I presume he was literate since he had a concealed carry permit, so he must have been able to pass some kind of a written test, heard the shots, ran to the sound of the shots, which is, I would say, remarkable event number one right there, saw the situation, took semi-cover, the dirtbag started to run away, and then committed suicide because he saw a good guy with a gun. And so the good guy had been prepared to shoot, but as you were just saying a minute ago, the good guys with guns are not cowboys and going off half-cocked. The good guy with a gun saw that there were people on the other side of the shooter, and he didn't want to miss and hit one of the good guys. And so while the shooter's not shooting, he held his fire. And you talk about control in an adrenaline-pushing situation. Here's a 22-year-old guy. As far as we know, he's not trained as a soldier or as a cop. It just mentions that a 22-year-old guy was there, and he handled himself brilliantly.
Yeah, you see the same situation or a similar situation in Atlanta school 2 weeks after, I believe, the Sandy Hook massacre took place. 14-year-old kid goes to school, takes his gun through the metal detectors, draws it on one of his classmates who made fun of a pimple or something like that, shoots the kid in the neck, and an armed guard, without firing a shot, got that kid down on the ground, extracted his weapon from him, and had him, handcuffed and sent to juvie hall or wherever they take piss ants like that. Here's the interesting thing. An armed guard didn't shoot, didn't have to, got the kid, got the gun away from him. Who knows what this kid was going to do with the rest of the rounds that he had in his gun. But again, that doesn't make that evening news. That's not dirty laundry. That doesn't forward the leftist agenda, so you're not going to hear diddly squat about it on television. NBC, CBS, ABC barely mentioned it, and so did Fox. I'm just like, why don't you scream this stuff from a rooftop? Because there's so many people saved. Here Obama, fleshes out his pressers with the parents of dead children. I tell you what, we need to come NRA and show the hundreds of kids and the parents that have been saved, thousands, by armed civilians or armed guards being present.
Well, and we know that there are parents in Sandy Hook that have the absolutely opposite point of view of the potted plants that were used by Obama when he had his anti-gun fest using these parents as backdrops. But they have chosen not to go public, at least many of them have. One or two, I think, I've seen them associated with the NRA and criticizing the critics. Somehow we're getting
for the sake of the country, and I can't stand in their shoes, Larry, and I'm not judging them at all, but I'm telling you what, for the sake of the country, and if I really love this grand American experience and self-governance, I'd get up and stand up for the NRA and for gun rights enthusiasts, because it's on like Donkey Kong. They're going for our guns, folks.
They are making the big push. We are in a fight for our lives. I can tell you, having been in this for decades, there's never been a conflict this intense and this prolonged. Folks, if you haven't joined up the fight, this is the time to go to gunowners.org and get yourself signed up, get on that alert list, and become active.
Stay tuned for more of the Gun Owners News Hour, the program that bears the raw truth about the battle over who controls the guns, the people or the government.
Doug Giles has compiled a book on the Sandy Hook Massacre. That's the title. And the subtitle is When Seconds Count, the Police Are Minutes Away. Not a criticism. That's a statement of fact. And we need to get that through our heads, because apparently it hasn't gotten through the heads of legislators who are quite content so far to leave gun-free zone laws on the books. They would penalize people who have a gun in one of these zones. So far, I haven't heard of Nick Melly, the Clackamas hero, being prosecuted for having violated the mall's no guns policy, but I suppose that always could happen in some future event. I know that there was a case on a bus not long ago, Doug, when a kid had a gun on the chest of a kid he was fixing to blow away. A third kid grabbed the gun away from him, cooled the whole situation down real fast, and showing that no good deed goes unpunished, the third kid that grabbed the gun away from the bad guy got expelled longer than the kid that had the gun in the first place.
I tell you what, man, the monkey's on top of the horse. We are in the planet of the apes. This is crazy. Hey, speaking of Larry, gun-free zones, how's Chicago working out for in their gun-free zone, La La Land? Is it doing okay?
I think one of your contributors pointed out that their annual gun death tally is in excess of any of the states in the country. One city.
I think in the last 5 years there's been more deaths in Chicago than there has been in Iraq and Afghanistan with all the allies.
There's some hope.
That's what they want to turn America into.
Yeah. Well, there's some hope for those in Illinois and in Chicago. Right now, there's a matter that a federal court has told Illinois they've got to have a concealed carry law or there will be no law. Right now, there's a law prohibiting any kind of concealed carry in Illinois. Well, I'm kind of rooting for the legislature running the clock and not making the deadline. They were given 180 days because if they were to go into no gun law, that would be what we call constitutional carry. It would be joining the 4 states already there, Vermont, Wyoming, Alaska, and Arizona, where you don't need a permit to carry a gun. And I'll bet you can predict at least as fast as I can what would happen to the skyrocketing murder rate in Chicago.
It would shrink. We would experience some incredible shrinkage, man, because again, the criminals get it. If there's a gun present and they know that there's a whole likelihood that somebody is there and they have the wherewithal to put down a bad person, then they're going to think twice. They're not really the Billy Badass that they think they are when they're talking about their crimes in the comfort of their HUD home. But when you really step out on the pavement, you break down somebody's door, and you're going to go for the one that's a gun-free zone versus the one that's a gun-filled zone.
Gee, do you think?
I know criminals aren't smart, but I think they at least get that. But you point out you had a great point coming into this segment, Larry, about we're not disparaging police, we're not disparaging the military. The best-hearted police officers or National Guard or Marine or whoever with ninja-like capabilities driving a Viper, descending en masse in Black Hawk helicopters, they can't get there quick enough. When it happens fast. 3 feet, 3 seconds, 3 shots, it's over. You look at the report coming out of Newtown this week about Adam Lanza. He dumped everything, 56 rounds within 5 minutes, if we can believe that report. And by the time
with lots of time to switch magazines.
Yeah, and by the time they got there, it's just time to draw chalk outlines and pick up body bags.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame there was not armed presence at the school. I guarantee one of those cute teachers would have pulled out again a little LCP 380. Boom, numbnuts is dead, and his massacre is over. Or, say she missed. I guarantee he would have been screaming like a 12-year-old chick running back to his car.
I think that is absolutely the case. I know from a friend of mine who I've had on this program, Charles van Veek of Cape Town, South Africa, that even the notion of return fire is enough to break off a criminal attack because it wasn't in the plan. And
he was facing Muslims there in Cape Town
with AKs,
with AK-47s, right?
And he had a puny little 5-shot 38, which he's apologized for since then. But it was enough. It was enough by God's grace.
God bless.
The next time he'll send the very best.
Brother, I'm telling you, if anybody starts that crap in my church, oh my God, is it? Are they going to rue the day? We have private security. We have armed congregants. I'm armed when I speak at all times. Good luck, Chuck.
My only fear in your church would be getting in the crossfire.
No, we because I'm out there in the public eye and I don't mince words and stuff. We've drilled. It's like if anything happens, just duck, just get down. And,
because there are designated hitters who are available to take a swing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I love
it. And again, and I get a lot of crap, for being a Christian and saying, that we should protect ourselves and protect our loved ones. And like, well, what would Jesus do? Well, he told us in Luke 22, verse 36, told the disciples to get a sword, and that was a 12 to 18-inch dagger that was used for tapping a lung in an animal or a human being. It wasn't one of those decorative claymores to commemorate their 3 years of being together as the best friends that anybody could have. And I think that translates in our day and age into a Glock, a 6-hour, or an Airlight Smith & Wesson 357.
You had a kind of heart-rending account of the reaction of the principal and assistant principal. I believe they were two ladies that were running the school at Sandy Hook. They ran toward the sound of the gunfire. The only problem with that otherwise excellent move, they didn't have anything with them.
Yeah.
And so they were gunned down.
Same thing with Holocaust survivor, 76-year-old gentleman at Virginia Tech. he placed his skinny, frail little body against the door to the classroom as Cho Sung-wi was coming through the hallway killing people, and he allowed all of his class to jump out the second floor window, and then Cho Sung-wi killed him as he pressed against the door. This is stupid, people. Criminals don't obey gun-free zones. It's crazy. I'm not saying every teacher should have a gun and we should force teachers to carry any of that other stuff, but you get somebody, two somebodies, maybe three somebodies on that campus at all times while there's students, teachers, and administrators on it, so that any kind of malcontent rocks up there with a firearm that they know that there's a high probability that they're going to be on Dante's six concentric circle after they pull the trigger, then I guarantee they'll think twice about it.
Well, I have to confess, and I think I've made this confession already on the show on other occasion, that my heretofore absolutist views about everybody ought to be able to have a gun, I've had to modify. I was mistaken. Obviously, there are angry liberals like Piers Morgan that probably would be safer without a gun.
Yeah, and I think if you look at all the people who carried out these mass murders, a lot of them have a political bent to the left. So maybe we ought to forbid gun ownership by party affiliation now.
I don't think you're going to find it very easy to find a conservative that has been one of these mass shooters. These typically, if they have any views that make any sense at all, are people of the left. And maybe we could argue that even if you have views that don't make any sense at all, that necessarily puts you on the left. It's not guys from our side of the field that are doing these kinds of things. That's just you're going to be pretty hard pressed to make that argument.
Yeah, and we covered that extensively in regards to the background on ClashDaily.com, my website, of where these cats like Dylan Klebold, Eric Harris, Cho Sung-wi, Adam Lanza, who are the other morons?
Dirtbag 1, Dirtbag 2.
Yeah, James Holmes and the Aurora shooter, and Jared Lochner, who they tried to pin he's a Tea Partier. Then come to find out, well, he wasn't a Tea Partier. He had some very liberal political worldviews and stuff. And again, by and large, we're not the perfect party. Just because you're conservative doesn't mean you have angel's wings. But you know what? It's usually these unhinged leftists that do this stuff, by and large, here in the United States.
Pastor Doug Giles has given us a book called Sandy Hook Massacre, and a number of contributors all off of his website, ClashDaily.com, columnists who write there, I guess a lot of them on a regular basis, and have put a spotlight on the really tragic views that led to Sandy Hook. But the idea is that if God hasn't created man, and instead we have come up from some green slime somewhere, then there's really nothing special about man. And if I smash a bug or kill a man, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. And people are going to object that, well, that's not got any connection with what's happening in the classroom. Well, if you want to know why we have so many more of these mass murders, particularly in classrooms, but other places as well, consider that folks that are involved in these kinds of things don't seem to find anything special about human beings.
Yeah, I believe Audrey Russo is the one who penned that chapter. If people think that we come from nothing and we're going to nothing, then life is completely meaningless. And like Friedrich Nietzsche said, the only thing that is left is the will to power. So if I want your life, if I want your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, if I want X, Y, and Z, then I should crush you to get it. And what's weird is, they have this worldview when it comes to an unborn child. They call it a thing. I don't know if you heard that in the congressional hearings this week. They call it a fetus, and it's nothing to them for them to snuff out the life, cut the spinal cord right at the lower cortex of that little kid, or vacuum it out with a vacuum cleaner that has cutting blades in the tube.
Or as the one lady was talking about a child that she might give birth to that she didn't want, just putting it up on a shelf and leave it there because, after all, she's the mother.
Yeah, and it's barbaric. And then when in these kids like Adam Lanza and all these, first of all, if you look at the kids like Lanza, James Holmes, Jared Lochner, Cho Sung-Wee, you look at all their school pictures, they look nuttier than a squirrel turd, man. You look at Lanza,
Spacey.
They look at Lanza. His college records came out today. He's staring into the camera with this kind of catatonic, Van Rollon glaze on his eyes. He's got that Mo Howard haircut from the Three Stooges. And here's something that I really want to point out that our book covers that I do. I hammer the crap out of this, is what in God's name is Nancy Lanza letting that demonic dillweed get anywhere close to a gun? Larry, they said, according to these bar patrons there in Newtown, that Nancy Lanza told them that she came home one time and old Numbnuts is lighting his armpits on fire. And here he is playing first-person violent video games, Call of Duty. She takes him to the range to bond with him over shooting guns, and she allows him, in close proximity to firepower. I wouldn't have let that kid anywhere near a gun. You can see he's crazy. I'd get him into medical marijuana, get him to play Nerf football, and surround him with elevator music everywhere that nutty SOB went.
Lighting his armpits on fire.
Lighting his armpits on fire.
I've heard of a lot
of crazy things. I never ever thought about lighting.
No, sir. That's a first for me too. That would have at least made me think that Houston, we have a problem.
Maybe I need to take my Browning 22 back. You lunatic. But this is something that it's like we got to ban high capacity magazines. How about we ban high stupidity parents that have zero discernment whether their kid is mature enough to get around a firearm? How about we ban psychotropic drugs, which every mass murder has been absolutely, addled with this kind of dope in the last 25 years?
And then there's a problem with some of the video games, which beyond the content, which arguably ends up making it fun to murder, is the lack of any social interaction that these kids learn hours and hours every day, apart from any human contact whatsoever, just killing. And that.
It's weird when, and I'm sure you experienced it too, Larry. Growing up, I'm 50, and when we'd go to high school, grew up in West Texas, even though I live in Miami. When we'd go to high school, we'd hit the duck pond or the dove field first light. We'd bring our shotguns to school. They'd stay in the racks of our pickup truck or in the trunks of our cars. We got in fights. We got high. We got drunk. And you know what? None of us, because we were socialized, none of us, because we had a Judeo-Christian background, ever thought in our inebriated state or when we were having fist fights in the alley or on the football field or whatever, to draw a gun and kill our classmates. It didn't happen. It's when those things were extricated from our culture and God was expunged from our environment that you see this ramp up in violence amongst young people.
I think it's an excellent point. Guns do not make crimes happen. There's something in the human heart that makes crime happen, but the availability of a particular instrument of destruction isn't the factor. It may delay it if it's in its absence, but it's certainly not going to put an end to that desire.
But if people think that guns are the only way to kill a lot of people, I got two words: Timothy McVeigh. He had a Ryder truck and fertilizer, and he blew a stonking hole in the Murrow building, and it killed more fertilizer, and a Ryder truck killed more kids, I believe, in that nursery that was in the Murrow building than Adam Lanza did at Sandy Hook. Are we going to go ban rental trucks and fertilizer now?
And it wasn't the first time by any means fertilizer had been used. I think it was in your book. One of the contributors pointed out that
1928.
Yeah, Dirtbag on two different occasions got a total of something like 45, mostly kids, blown into the next world by his fertilizer.
And going back to the Murrow bombing, that happened in 1995, 1 year after the assault weapons ban.
Yeah, how was that working out for us?
Yeah, again, it's criminals do bad stuff, and to punish good people is insanity. It's it works against any kind of common sense that I've ever known. But I'm a redneck, Larry. What do I know?
What do any of us know? Well, we're just about out of time, but I guess we could cap off what you were just saying by something that one of your contributors had in the book. Liberals want power, thus they want to control guns. But it's not that they're primarily after the guns, it's just that they want everything controlled.
Well, one thing I've learned, especially my daughter devastating Acorn 3 years ago, is that the issue is never the issue with the left. So no matter what they're propping up, that ain't the issue. The issue is always the revolution. And they want America, and they're pressing hard for it, and they're trying to take us fiat by fiat, law by law, command by command, until the whole flippin' American frog is boiled, and they've turned this thing into a Euro-socialistic nightmare.
Well, we got to salute you, the father of Hannah Giles that smoked out those dirtbags at Acorn, did the country so much good. It was so neat to see Saul Alinsky applied to the practitioners of Saul Alinsky.
Yeah, buddy.
The book we've been talking about, Sandy Hook Massacre, When Seconds Count, the Police Are Minutes Away, edited by Doug Giles, pastor in Miami, Florida. This is really a great read, folks. You'll find out what really happened. And
our rights to keep and bear arms has never been under as much attack. And gun owners of America are fighting daily in Washington to protect that right. GOA is the only no-compromise gun lobby in Washington. The Gun Owners News Hour is hosted by GOA's Executive Director, Larry Pratt. Be sure to join us next week. And remember, it's not just about gun control, it's about control.
In the spirit of gun control, will you disarm your entire security team?
We'll get right back to you.
You'll get
Came
back
over
to me?
very friendly.
Would you like a sip of my
Very
soda?
friendly body language. They're grabbing on him.
Why
On him, dragging him
why
away.
can you defend yourself but not
pushing him back?
the majority of Americans? I mean, look at the team of security you got. And you're an advocate for gun control? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.